I'll reconvene the April 12th Board of Supervisors meeting. Tonight is the budget work session. Present is all the members of the Carolina County Board of Supervisors. To my left, Mr. Jeff. My far left, Mr. Jeff Black. My left, Mr. Clay Forehand. To my right, Mr. Sealy. Next to Mr. Sealy's right is Ms. Nancy Ball. Mr. Roy Thomas to the far end. I'm Reggie Underwood from the church. Gentlemen, before you have tonight's agenda, I would like to amend the agenda and move the closed session item number 2 down to item number 6. Below 6, yeah, after item number 6. And start with our open session regarding the capital projects. Any questions or concerns?
We need to make a motion. I'll make a motion. We amend the agenda and move.
Mr. Cully, you had a question?
No, I'll quiet my son out.
Make a motion. I make a motion. We amend the agenda, move the closed meeting to the end after agenda item number 6.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Forehand. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll go right to the opening session, agenda item number 3, which is capital projects update from our meeting. Mr. Cully, I guess.
This had come up at the, there was going to be some discussion of capital projects at this meeting. We provided the status of capital projects update that we normally have. I think Mr. Thomas, you were the one that had some questions about.
No, my concern was trying to make the meeting as short as possible. So I asked Mr. Park if you would delay it until today.
Wonderful. Well, this is just your basic update of the projects that have been ongoing. It's a handout at your place, so if there's any questions or anything, we can certainly try to answer those.
The land acquisition is not part of this bucket of money for Sparta?
It would be if under the 1.5 million for Sparta at the top under active projects. See Carmel Church Station, Sparta Fire Station. So you can see Carmel Church, we expended 244,241.
So I'm looking at the zero. That's all.
Yeah, it hadn't really anything been charged through that yet. There should be some things that would be coming in that would be charged against that from the surveying, some of that stuff, but it's not much.
And we did, since you mentioned Carmel Church, we did say at our Tuesday meeting it was okay to advertise. Have we gone ahead and advertised now, or we're still waiting for DEQ?
I didn't think we'd ever gotten DEQ approval.
We had not, so with DEQ. So we are pulling that out of the contract, and as soon as we get DEQ approval, we'll be advertising.
So the answer is no, it hasn't been advertised.
And you let us know as soon as you get DEQ approval.
Yeah, we'll send out an email as soon as we get that, and when it's advertised, it'll go out and be on our website now.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding the capital project update?
Can any of these be closed out? Some of these have got some age to them.
We could close out VITA right away, the one that's at 100%. I'm pretty sure, but I'm not positive. I think that the records management system for the sheriff, has that been completed?
Yes, this was.
So yeah, we'll look at a couple of those that have been ongoing. Some of the computer ones take a right good time, like the CAD, to get those all the way over the finish line. I think the phone system is complete, so we can close that out. The board phone, and I believe softball's complete. Some of them we normally pull off with the after June 30th. We'll redo the list and stuff. They come along.
When you do that, Mr. Cully, would you kindly just let us know the ones that you pull off, just identify those as completed in one section?
We will. We'll just give you an updated for the end of the year. We'll update. We'll just give you an update of all the ones that close out for the year will be removed.
Right. Thank you.
Or or be another column just saying, you know, we're at 87% of the money, but we're done.
We're done. Okay. Oh, yeah, we can add that to this one. But that,
And I think
not
some
only
of the
percent
ones-
complete, but completed. Yeah, we can do that, right? Yeah, we can do that during the year. We'll do that. We'll just update that to this Excel sheet. Appreciate it.
Any other questions regarding or comments regarding the capital projects?
It's anybody from school able to speak to the ones.
We would like for them, I'm sure, Marshall will be able to.
I didn't think that far, but I will.
Same copy.
Okay. I'm not sure it's prepared, but
If you're not, it's no big deal. I was just, while I was going down that path.
is Dr. Calvert, is someone from the schools prepared to speak to the capital projects?
We are prepared to speak to capital improvement projects if you'd like an update. We don't have the same document you're looking at, however.
Can I give that to you? Or
That
give
would
you a
be
copy
great,
and then
absolutely.
If there's something that wasn't part of the plan, but.
If you can,
it's on-
We can't, we're just finding the right document.
I was
We've
gonna
got
say,
multiple.
I was prepared and I was hoping I pulled it off my desk, but unfortunately.
And I'm gonna go ahead and have Chris come up and address many of these, and you can interject along the way. Because this whole backside is related to the projects that we have received funding for.
Stuff in there, 301, I mean, the 304.
Starting on the middle school generator replacement project, that is still unchanged.
So middle school generators on the back of the page number 2, item number 3.
Yes,
I'm saying that is
it's
not
unchanged at this
Okay.
point.
It's still not done yet, but
So it's not completed is the question?
Correct.
Do you have an anticipated completion date?
I do not off the top of my head right now.
And I apologize for not knowing that.
That's okay, we'll do our very best, and then
Yeah,
if
that's
there's
fine.
more refinement that's needed, we can follow up with
The
you.
new one?
What about the, I'll just go down, the Caroline High School Stadium bleachers?
The stadium bleachers were completed on Tuesday of this week.
Tuesday this week?
Yep, and we should be receiving a invoice for that by Friday.
Great. I'm just going down lights are completed.
The lights were completed. I know the lunch tables were completed.
Right.
Roof
Roof repair.
repairs, we still have some monies waiting for any roof leaks to pop up since the last repairs.
I'm not, you mean money's waiting? We
We
still
still
have the capital project.
right, and
And
then
you
some
said
of it
you-
was for ongoing repairs, as it was listed.
No, it was, okay.
There were specific buildings that were associated with those funds, and then there was an overage amount that was our understanding, without the document in front of me, from my memory, there was an understanding that we would hold that overage and we would be able to address those ongoing roof concerns.
That was not my understanding.
Okay, well, we can revisit that,
We
Mr.
can.
Underwood. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. We'll bring
Well-
more information back for you.
Middle school bleachers were completed back in February. Invoice was turned over to the county in February.
Thank you.
Um,
Technology switches.
We do not have Joey Robinson with us tonight. There has been much work done in that area, but I don't know if it has reached completion at this point. So we'll have to get back with you
And I
on
do
that
know
one.
that there's been a delay with switches for because of
Yes.
the practice field. It says completed.
That's complete.
And I'm so sorry. Marcia is now in her
Okay.
electronic document. The switches are complete.
At 170,000.
Okay.
What's next, Chris?
Annex gym lighting, that is complete.
Plumbing for the photo lab.
Only photo labs complete. Floor lifts are complete. Two-way radios for schools, I believe that's complete. Portable radios, that should be complete. Dump trucks complete.
Good. Now, the monies that you have left over, if you don't spend all based on this capital improvement
Yes, sir.
project, that's the money you would like to continue to move forward, is that what, for our last discussion?
Well, I think my understanding was we were, of course, addressing those buildings that were outlined in the original document associated with the roofing. And then through the span of this money that you reappropriated to us, we would hold on to that until we needed to return it to you.
Okay.
Because I would imagine, even though it's been reappropriated come June 30, that money, if there's any remaining that's been reappropriated, that'll again come back to you, would be my understanding. Okay. So we were holding it throughout the year, even though those original projects have been completed, we were using that as items came up for roofing until the end of that fiscal cycle. Does that make sense?
So
No.
Not that that's carrying forward into another year, but that we were going to use it throughout the year that you reappropriated it. And if new leaks came up, we would use that money to address those leaks associated with those buildings.
CIP does.
No, Mr. Cully?
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
That
Okay.
was that's in the capital improvement fund for the school, so the school CIP fund. So it's not in their
Okay.
funds. We
Right.
So
actually
you
have
have
it.
it.
They give us the receipts of what they've spent it on, and it has to be for what it was for. And so if they had, say, 100,000 left over in that, well, I don't know what you had.
I don't know.
Well, no, that could be then reappropriated back into the next year's school CIP for roof repairs. And if they have any more leaks, it could just be used for that. But it would have to take action of the board in July.
So that would be
But
an additional
so-
request.
June 30.
It's over. Yeah, they can't spend. Yeah,
Looks like those
you're,
have to be
you've been
reappropriated.
looking at what's proposed for 23
Right.
in their CIP, and there's no rollover for that yet for that roof repair. But it could easily be done.
So I'm correct in saying that that money, that pot of funds won't roll over. It's with you,
Automatically.
correct. So that does
So we're-
need to be discussed. So we
That's
were
right.
just using it for roofing throughout, but I don't know the total. Marcia said there's a substantial amount left, around 200,000, but we
Right.
can get you a specific number after tonight.
Some of the projects went over budget because
Right.
of the inflation.
Right.
So some of them are over budget. For example, on this, the dump truck, CMS Stadium went over. The CMS bleachers went over.
Well, we can talk about that at a
Yeah.
meeting
At a
and
joint meeting?
see what's available and
Sure.
what we're going to use it for.
Unrelated to the list, we do have with us, if you would like it, we certainly don't want to infringe upon your workshop, but we thought it may be helpful for you to have, and not necessarily for conversation right now, but we did bring copies of the quotes associated with the Lotus bathrooms, the high school bathrooms. We did work with Mr. Whiteman as requested by you, so we have that this evening. We also have the quote and the air quality study associated with the CMS HVAC replacement, which we are requesting some additional CIP monies for through the FY23 budget. So if you think that information would be helpful for you to have, we're happy to pass it to Ms. Hall, and she can send it down your way. Otherwise, we can hold it and give it to Mr. Cully. But we have that tonight in copies for each of you.
You can give it to Ms. Hall and we'll.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Calvert.
Yes, sir.
Any more questions on the capital projects? All right, item number. Any more questions? Okay, no questions. Discussion of proposed FY 22-23 budget. Item A, school funding. Mr. Black, you have comments?
Yeah, I've made comments before on this, and I just don't understand the genesis behind us. Where, what was the genesis behind zero flat funding? And I really haven't received an answer yet. Mr. Kelly built the budget, and I was just wondering what the genesis behind that was.
I felt that they were getting enough state money at their own words for 7%. Anything we do this year, we've got to do again next year.
Sure.
So we got to pick up, if their salaries go up 10% this year, then that's already built into next year along with whatever increase that's brought up for next year. If the state mandates a 5% increase to them and we've got the match to make, then all of that just compounds itself next year. So in looking at the budget, I felt that was enough. I mean, it's never enough, but there's nothing personal. It's just numbers.
I guess
another million for me was another million out of our fund now.
I guess my only concern is, and we've had years where we've had, lean years, and we have flat funded in those years. And
We've never.
We never flat funded.
we
cut them my first year.
We cut them by 350 the first year.
We cut them my first year, but
Yes,
I think they've gotten, it almost averages out to $400,000 or $500,000 a year. One year they've gotten more, up to $1 million here recently.
Right.
But it was sort of averaging along about 500. I felt like if I could find 500,000 a year, that was what we could, put in. So I'd have to look at another chart to tell you what that historically has been, but it's not historically been level funded. And especially with the state kicking in that much
And I
money.
get that. I understand the state's kicking in a lot. But one of the things that, like, as someone who's a member of ACO, we've been lobbying the state to give them more money. And because the state hasn't been paying that share, and I think every county in the state would agree with that. It's just when the state actually comes out with a banner year, which there obviously are for the schools, what the schools are getting, they're paying attention more. I just don't feel like that's an opportunity for us to say, hey, look, we need to cut back now. I don't think I don't think the state money is supposed to supplant what we give.
We just cut back. You keep saying we cut back.
Where you are cutting back
No.
because you've got, yes, because because it's the same amount of,
Okay.
you're getting the same amount of money and
Okay.
you have inflation and there's costs going
All right.
up. Everyone has, so technically, if you make this every year, the same amount you are, and technically, it's not a cutback per se, but it's technically a cutback because of inflation.
The actual money spent last year for schools, they returned to us $800,000 out of the budget.
Uh-huh.
That $800,000 is still part of the funding for this year. That means they can spend $800,000 additional what they spent last year. So you can call it, you can call it level funding, but when you look at the actual budget, their actual cost, their budget is $800,000 more than they spent last year.
That's not a way to look at it.
Yeah, what do you mean it's not a way to look at it?
That's not a way to look at it.
That's maybe not your way.
No, it's not a way to look at it because last year they didn't have certain expenses because of COVID. They didn't have to spend it on transportation, a lot of stuff. So they were lacking expenses that they had to pick up this year.
What expenses did they not spend because of COVID?
Transportation.
No, that's not true.
Did you have less transportation costs last year?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So that is true.
No, it's not.
Come on.
Yeah.
The buses were not
Yeah.
running a bunch. Come on,
Right.
Rich. That's just not even. That's not even accurate. That's not even accurate.
So how
They weren't
much
running
did
the
you,
buses?
so
I mean, the amount of gas and so forth, if students are staying home rather than coming to school, they don't have to run buses, that is a huge cost that they don't have to spend. They had to incur that this year because everyone's back in school now.
if they had to incur additional costs, they would have spent the money this year. If they actually spent 15 million and they had 15.8, then if they spent 50 and we give them 15.8 this year, that's an $800,000 increase for spending. Yes, it is.
I mean, you guys can do what you want, that's fine.
We will. We
Yeah,
will.
I have no doubt.
We will.
I have no doubt, but it's.
Mr. Cully, Mr. Long has a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cody, state gives their block of money. We're required to do a certain percentage of that.
And we have a required local effort we have to maintain. And then if they give raises, they normally say we have to put in a match for that for the positions that are state supported. Remember, not all the employees, not all the teachers, they're not all state funded because they say they don't need them. Just like sheriff deputies, they have all.
So our match will go up this year because the state funding's gone up. So it's not flat funding.
Right,
It's
we'll get
gonna
closer
go up.
to the required local effort. We cannot ever be under the required local effort.
We're
So
usually
the
over.
required local effort by percentage is going down, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we'll be giving less.
Yes. So
Yes.
our percent of how much the local money goes to this is getting very close. It's actually shrinking.
Correct.
Yes. Yes.
We're not
And it's
there
not
yet.
even, I mean, there's another statistic. It's not close to what other counties are giving. It's a fact. It's been a fact ever
You
since.
continue to talk about what other counties are giving with just words. Bring some data, and we'll take a look at it.
Okay, the percent, sure,
Bring the data.
sure.
That's your main state. Other counties are other. We're not Spotsylvania. We are not Stafford. We are not Hanover. Our tax base is not the same.
Yep. But you still have to
Bring
have the
the-
school system.
And we do fund the school system.
Mhm.
Yes, Mr.
You know, Mr. Thomas had an interesting spreadsheet a couple of board meetings ago about return funds over the last 4 or 5 years. Was that 4 or 5 years, Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, it was based on the spreadsheet that Smith, or audit that Smith did for us, yes, 5 years.
And last year, we did fund transfers, Dr. Calvert, didn't we, from transportation to instruction?
Last year, I don't
They
I
did,
don't
we didn't
recall.
ever.
No, the
No.
school system did a transfer of
know.
600,000 from
Yeah.
transportation to instruction.
300,000.
On the school side, they did that, but the county never did that because it was right at the time the audit was finished. And the schools did that right at the 1st of November or late December, late October. But the county books don't reflect that.
But they still came in 800,000 under budget.
I thought it was 690, I thought it was 693.
8
years ago?
No,
697.
897 last year.
697.
697.
Yes.
697.
I have some data that may be helpful to provide
Well, we're just trying to
perspective.
go through, I'm trying to go through what the recorded stuff is,
Sure.
just to figure out where we are, because
Right.
can you tell me, Dr. Calvert, how many years we've given raises, just the years and the percent?
Well, I can give you, based on the presentation we shared with you when we presented the school board's approved budget, in FY20, we received, this is for compensation, historical data. In FY20, we received $562,000 from local, $464,229 from state. That allowed us to raise the starting teacher salary to $41,800 for 0 years of experience. In FY21, we did not receive any compensation support from state or from the local government. In FY22, we received $806,321, and from state we received $862,892. That allowed us to move from $41,800 as a starting salary to $43,311.
What did those translate to for teachers and everybody else's raises those 2 years? What percentage?
The percentage of raises over time, you are looking at, for FY19, a 3.09% increase on average. For FY20, it was a 3.05% increase. For FY21, there was a 5% that actually, was there a 5% who stayed at 41.8? We retroed to 5%, and then FY22, we gave a 5%. Those were the state required in order to access the funding.
So that's all but 1 year there were raises then, 19, 20.
The retro 20, and remember, for FY21, that was the spring of the pandemic. You know,
Right.
everybody was contracting and holding on to everything,
Right.
and they were not funded. We didn't fund any increase because we didn't know whether we were going to have the funds to be able to do it. We were just going into the throes of the pandemic when we were planning that. But beyond that, we also funded all the way back to 18, the start of your compensation plan before you were here that year. So
I don't have
I
that
know
data
that, but I'm
in front
saying,
of
but
me.
we did, but you know, Dr.
Sure.
Parker started that and the board did fund, that was about 600 some thousand that we put in and the state put in 400,000. So I know back to the FY18 forward, other than FY20, there have been, the board has funded cost of living raises.
The piece that I thought might be of interest to you that I don't think we've ever shared with you, just to give perspective, and you can tell me whether you're interested in hearing the data or not. And I'm completely fine either way. But Mrs. Stevens, in her travels with other, regional partners, they talk often about gauging what your year-end revenues remaining look like. And so I do have some data from other localities. I think it's important to put into context because one of the things, and I don't believe that there is any intent there, but it is a perception of Sarah Calveric hearing this statement that we have this continued revenue left at the end of the year. And I don't want the community or for anyone supportive of K-12 to think that we are not good fiscal stewards. That is 1.46% of our $40+ million budget. And it would not be sound practice to go below 2% on a regular basis. That is what people suggest. And so Spotsylvania, which Mr. Black is very familiar with, had $14 million left, and they returned all of it recently to their school board. Prince George had 1.2 million, that was 1.75%. Powhatan had 656%, that was 1.3.
Dr. Helbert,
Yes,
what,
sir.
since you're going along with percentage, what was
Sure.
Spotsylvania's percentage?
That was 4.2%.
14 million.
Because of course they're so much larger
Right,
than we are.
right,
Yes,
right.
sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
New Kent was 1.6 million, which is 4.6% of their budget. Let's see. Goochland was around 620,000. Scrolling down. Northampton had 1 million left, and that was about 5%. Hanover had 9.7 million left, that was 4.6%. Charles City had 281, they're tiny, and that's actually 2.8% of their budget. Caroline had 1.46% of their budget left. Dinwiddie had 800,000, which is 1.5%. So I just want to share perspective. We're not an anomaly, and I think that might just help to share, what we are doing on an annual basis is sound. And we want to get as close to zero as possible, believe us, but we also need to recognize that we have pay periods that occur beyond June 30. We also have a 2-month delay in sales tax, and we don't find out until March 31st, and really 2 weeks later, what our final average daily membership payment is. So we're spending money for months with a predicted number. And so we have to hold conservatively so that if our ADM comes in below our estimate, we have to repay the state. Right. And so we get into like those last couple of months of the school year, and we do oftentimes have $1 million left, and we start spending down on things that we know we need, for example, paper or replacing whiteboards, things that we can get in-house by June 30 because they have to be on site. So we have some parameters that are really restrictive. If I felt like there was something that we weren't doing well, I absolutely would heed some advice and some suggestions. But I do feel proud in how we handle our fiscal accounts.
Those are good numbers to have.
Sure.
So from my perspective, when we look at, I would encourage you to
16%.
to look at those numbers, those percentages, and when we have our budget conversation,
Right.
that's part of the conversation.
Sure.
As stewards of the county money, in order to make sure we are here and not over the line,
Right.
we have a 1.3% return. I think that's important because it does give a different perspective.
Yes, sir.
So,
Because if they're 1.3 or 1.4%
right,
over, then they would be stamping our feet.
right.
So,
Right.
man,
So we have to reach a happy medium with you on that. So
Right. But thank you for indulging me.
we appreciate that.
I guess my only point is that just to be clear, over the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, there's been a 16% increase in salaries, and just salaries.
And you can look at that data point as a standalone, but unless you build context around it, it's a false narrative. It's accurate in that, sure, if you add up those percentages, that is true. But we still remain 14th out of 16 in the region. So while we're doing that, we're not maintaining
I'm just saying
pace.
that there's been a change in salaries of 16% over the last 6 years.
Absolutely, and I would ask for you to consider what has been the pace of multiple departments throughout our county, what has been the pace of our region, and do that comparison as well and see, are schools in Caroline maintaining what the regional comparisons are? Are we maintaining what has also been appropriated throughout other departments throughout the county? And just make sure that we are being equitable in how we're approaching compensation to make sure that all of Caroline is competitive. I know we've worked hard in some other areas, but I just asked for the same with schools.
Mr. Thomas, I'm sorry. Mr. Thomas, yeah, what's he done?
I've got one more question. Have we done 16% for county employees that same time period?
17, the summer of 17, September was when our pay study went into effect. And we didn't do anything for FY 19, so that went in FY 18. We didn't do anything. No, we didn't. Yeah, FY 19. FY 20, before the pandemic, we did a 2% COLA and a 3% merit. So you were eligible for up to 3%, but that was merit based, so the floor was 2. And then for 21, we didn't do anything, just like the schools, because of the pandemic. And then FY 22, we did 5%. So since our pay study, we did a 2% COLA with up to a 3% merit. So that didn't average for everybody 5 by any stretch. And then we did a 5% COLA for FY 22. So
we've done 8% in that same time frame?
Give or take, yeah, because the average probably came out for that COLA plus was probably somewhere about 3.5.
One of the things
So Mr. Thomas is next. Are you done, Mr. Taylor?
Yeah.
Mr. Thomas?
Mr. Cully, the raise the state is providing for teachers this year, to your knowledge, is how much?
I'm not sure. I've been getting my numbers from the schools, and I've been waiting for the state to do something to actually put the spreadsheets out of what they've actually authorized. But I would have to defer them to the board for Dr.
If I may, could I ask you, Dr. Calvert?
Sure, absolutely.
The raise for teachers this year being proposed by the state is
7%.
So based on the table that is coming from General Assembly calculations, the total is $917,268. And that is the state funding with the governor's proposed budget. And remember, this was the Governor Northam's proposal,
right,
which has not yet been modified by the General Assembly.
Now, just to make sure I understand, because I'm going to use easy math numbers and make it 900. That's for a 7% raise.
No, sir.
That's for what?
That is the amount that the state would provide for the standards of quality positions.
Just SOQ.
For 5%. And then you partner that with what the local required match would be. And the amount that the state has provided is $518,880.
The state is providing 900 plus 500.
No, sir.
No,
the state's doing 917.
They're asking the county to provide 518.
518.
For
yes,
just the standard of quality teachers.
Correct.
Which equals the 7% you're at now.
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Which equals what?
We are utilizing those two numbers added together would be 5% raises for standard of quality positions. Only.
Now, how many non-standard of quality people? Because we did this last year.
Right.
How much is that?
You were pulling from a memory bank. In terms of, are you looking for the number of positions or the
Just
total
dollars.
amount?
Okay.
The total amount is $3,526,716. And
Okay,
that
I'm
is
sorry,
for all
3,526.
positions, and that would be 10%.
Okay, no, I just need 7. So $1 million more is.
So 7% is, I will tell you what that
Take
is.
$1 million
7% for
I
all
wouldn't take $1 million off.
employees is $917,268 plus $1,476,139. That is 7% for all employees, and we are utilizing the state monies, the monies that they would also provide through a variety of other sources, such as
Right.
at-risk funding.
But if you excuse me for a second, I'm lost.
Okay.
So if you work with me one more time.
One more time, yes, sir.
900,000 what the state's giving you for the 5% raise.
For compensation.
For compensation.
Mhm.
For only SOQ. 518 is what you want the county to give you in addition,
No.
or you're gonna use the county money?
No, yeah, no.
So,
That's what the legislature.
518 would be the state, the county match, but they're matching that with something else and not asking us for that. They're asking us for 1.1 million for 3%. What we're
All
talking
right,
about.
let me get to that. I need to get to the first raise first, because I want to make sure I understand, because I got a question on that. But the 500,000 of the 518 of county money, you're gonna use from the 12 million and change the county gives you. You're not asking for an additional.
The
Is that what you're saying?
518,880,
Yes.
we are not accessing that because you are providing
Out of the 12
funding
million.
for the
normal give you.
7%.
Okay, so for 1.4, you get 5% raise for all the standard of quality people.
Is 1.4 the 917 and
It's
518?
900 and 518.
Okay.
Okay, so now we have non-standard of quality people. And the point I'm trying to get to is how the state is saying you get a raise, but they're not giving a raise to everybody, so the county and
Correct.
the schools have to help out.
Oh, you are absolutely
So
right.
how much more do I have to give for the non-standard of quality people to get the 5% raise?
All I have in front of
All you have is 3.5
all I have
to
in
get
front
to
of
10 million?
me is the. We have to subtract that. I don't have a calculator.
You can do
Just divide. 1.76.
1.76 million is the 3.5 million
3.526
divided by
half.
2.
Okay.
Yes, because that's the total for 10%.
So 1.7, that extra 1.7 is what we need for the non-standard of quality people.
No,
That was the question.
that 1.7 would be a 5% raise
Everybody.
for everyone, including SOQ and non-SOQ staff.
So to back
So
your
I
other
only
numbers
need
out of
I
1.7.
only need I only need 300,000 and change for the non-SOQ people to get 5%.
We are using a variety, so we are, because
Does
you
that
know
sound right,
we're,
Marcia? You
we
shaking
are,
your head, yeah.
and she can
I
interject.
said
yeah.
we are using other state funds that we're getting in different pockets to be able to do the 7%. We're saying we're all in. We recognize compensation is low, and we will put all the state funding that we're getting towards compensation.
So we're
Okay, and
using.
we've had this discussion before about you guys care where the money comes from, but in this case, I'm just trying to get an understanding of the actual numbers.
Sure.
And that's a big thing to all of us. A 5% raise
Right.
is 1.4 for just the SOQ people, but I got 1.7 more for non-SOQ. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Well, tell me what that number is.
Can I try?
Sure.
Okay, so 3.5 million would be for 10% of everyone.
For everybody.
Right. So if we take half of that,
Can
we're
I
gonna
just
say 1.7, 1.76.
Can I
If
just
that would be 5% for
everyone.
everyone. So now if the state is saying that the SOQ positions would be 900 from the state and then 500 from the localities, that's the 1.4. So you're correct in saying that basically, rough case estimate, the 300,000 would be the cost to provide 5% increase for the non-SOQ positions.
That's that's the number I want. Okay. So now the county has to provide 300,000 in funds for the non-SOQ people to
Plus-
get to the 5%.
Plus the five.
Yeah,
plus
this is
the
an
500.
additional. I'm just
That's right.
I'm
Plus
just
the
doing the
500,000
SOQs
for the SOQ positions.
Okay. So now
So
we know
ultimately,
what now we know what the 5% is.
yes, sir.
The schools want to double that number because they want to give a 10% rate. So now I need the 900,000 again from the state.
You need 900,000 from the state, and then the schools are offering from other state monies 1.4 million, and then from the county 1.1.
1.1.
That's the additional 3% COLA.
Right,
COLA.
right, 10%. I'm trying to get a handle on what those numbers are, make sure we all understand those numbers. So the state gave us 900,000.
Plus 1.7.
But, no, wait, but we want 3.5 to give the 10% raise.
Correct. Well, the
Right.
state has given for compensation 900,000.
Specifically 900,000.
Specifically for
But we got other
compensation,
things.
that's
Right.
for that 5% for the SOQ. And then they're going to pull from other state
Okay.
monies, that are not earmarked for compensation, the 1.4. So they're getting 2.3 million from the state.
That's kind of what I understand. But now, Mr. Cully, in your budget, you built in $5 million more from the state.
I built in exactly what they gave.
So you gave Mr. Cully $5 million more from the state.
It should be 5.6 million from the state, which 2.4 of it is one-time infrastructure, that the House has removed from the budget at this time.
You know, we don't know where it's going.
Right, so we don't know. So it's 3.2 million that Mrs. Smith just spoke of.
Of which comprises the 7% compensation amount, as well as the 8 positions that we had outlined for you, the 4 classroom teaching positions and the 4 operations positions.
The 3.2 is the additional state funding you think you can use for things other than infrastructure.
Right.
And 3.5 is what you need for the total 10%.
Is that,
No, they need
10% plus the
3.5 is the total
Right.
cost
1.1
of the raise.
I'm just stating numbers.
We're only asking for 1.1.
I'm just stating numbers.
Right.
Based on what our conversation just now has been to better my understanding.
But is that for raises and the 8 new positions, or just the raises?
The 3.5 is solely for the raises.
No, but what's the 1.1 million?
That's part of the 3.5.
I know that, but is that, so that's totally for raises, not new positions?
Correct.
That was what I understood it to be
Correct,
earlier on.
absolutely. It's the 1.1 from
3%
local,
Right, it's a 3%
917
COLA,
from
1.1
state,
million.
and 1.4 from
And
the
that's what's
other state.
not included in my budget. There's $5,655,038 included in new revenue in the operating fund of the school budget. Those are numbers I received from them. They're not sure what they're going to be any more than any of us are, because the General Assembly hadn't finished that.
I'm still working on the
Right,
previous
but,
budget.
but what they wanted would have been
Picture.
enough. They would want this to be $6,755,000. It's on the
Can you move your cursor
right,
Oh my gosh. Okay.
right there. You see, go around that.
Got it.
So that's the new money in the operating fund. They want that number to be $6,755,000 more dollars.
That's
That's
want
what.
another million from the county.
Yeah, another $1,100,000 from the county to give an extra 3% COLA on top of the 7 that's already built into the number that's in the budget.
Yes.
That's the question. And this doesn't have to do with numbers, because I'm not. I saw my name involved with checks, that's why I was doing all field outs. But you said you're gonna hire 8 new people,
Correct.
but you have 100 fewer students. Now, I know you had some oversized classes at Madison or one of the elementary schools. I understand that. But where are all the other positions coming? Because you're gonna have to, I know you're COVID fund heavy right now, but that's not gonna continue, so.
Absolutely, you're right about that. And so we're
you
monitoring
can't
those
take
17
somebody
positions
on
closely.
and throw them an increase, put them on that pay scale and then try to fund them again. So
Sure.
I explained why we're hiring all these people.
Absolutely. So we are talking in relation to the COVID positions. I know that was a question that was referenced by one of the boards, or a comment referenced by one of the boards. Those 17 positions include 9 that directly impact students, and that are.
How many of them actually? We can say the 9. This is where you lose.
Well, I'm going to go over. One's a school counselor, so that's a direct student impact. 2 special education teachers, a teacher for Lotus Academy, which is our alternative education pathway, 5 class size reduction positions.
What does that mean?
So to reduce the teacher-student ratio, we've added 5 classroom teachers so that the ratios are lower.
Certified teachers that
Yes.
help us? Okay.
Yes,
What's the
absolutely.
ratio now?
Oh, I
Depends on
don't,
elementary.
I don't know off the top of my head,
But is it,
Mr.
it's like,
Thomas.
is it like 25-1, and then with these new people, it'll be
Well,
20-1?
each
So
of
the
the
superintendent's
elementary
annual report.
schools has a class size reduction ratio that they're required to meet by the state. And so Bowling Green, I believe, is 22-1 they have to meet, and I think they might be 21-1 right now. And then Madison and Lewis and Clark, I believe they're both 23-1. But you're pulling from my memory bank, so I'd want to verify
No, that's
that.
fine, and it's ironic that the state would say you have to have this particular class size, but they don't give you money for the teachers.
There you go. So Dr.
At least not full money.
So Dr. Calvert, then I can
Yes.
assume that the state website is wrong regarding.
So the state website is very
It's an average,
misleading.
yeah.
You have to really understand what positions go into that student-teacher ratio. And so in that, they're including library media specialists, special education teachers. So not just your homeroom classroom
Not just
teacher.
not in class.
Exactly. And so that's what
support
drives us
services.
down
Right.
to, in the state of Virginia, we look very healthy, like 13-1 when you look at all of
I
that.
think it says 20-1, that's okay.
Right.
So, Floyd, I'm sorry, I cut across here.
Well,
I'm sorry.
really, my last question, period, would be what, if there were additional funding or how do I direct funding the county gives the schools specifically to instruction? I don't really have that authority, do I?
I'm not 100% certain I'm understanding your question.
Okay, I have in my right pocket
Yes.
$600,000 that I'm
Correct.
going to give you right now.
Yes.
How do I ensure that money goes to the instruction line item?
Well, we're certainly transparent with our line items and where things go. Now, you are very well aware that by the Code of Virginia, you appropriate money and don't necessarily tell us where it is utilized, but we have absolutely no issues coming to the table and having conversation with you, and then sharing our goals and our objectives and telling you where our money is being used, and then bringing our evidence and artifacts forward to document that is the money is where our mouth is, and that's what we're doing. That is how we've operated since I've served in this position, and I don't intend on moving or maneuvering in any different direction. So if you were to say we're giving you $600,000 for compensation, then we would be able to come forward and demonstrate that to you through a variety of documents.
And I'm going to say this, that was supposed to be my last thing, but I do want to say, I truly think we all believe that you're good stewards of the money.
Thank you.
I did show you in the spreadsheet that I produced before
Yes.
that you did ask for, and it's part of the budget process.
Sure.
You asked for millions of dollars more in instruction than you actually used in the previous year.
Sure.
So in
Got
some sense, that's something we have to work on. And I guess the only way to do that is, to meet more regularly or just to see numbers more regularly. That's it for me for now.
I would
Thank
like
you,
to
Doc.
just address Ms. Long's question, if you
Yes.
allow me to, and that was we have less students. We actually budgeted for 4010, and please interject if I'm quoting wrong. 4,010 students, and our average daily membership is running about 4080, 4090. So we actually have more students than we expect. So that's something to also keep in mind. We're actually going to receive more money than we were anticipating, but yet that money that we're going to be getting around April 4036, that's preliminary, so it's dropped. Okay. Still an increase in funding than what we had budgeted with, and that we have to spend that by June 30. So we have a very small turnaround time. So that's just an example. But to answer your question, the 8 positions that we have budgeted, off the top of my head, they are as follows. 2 CTE positions. One is for the high school, one is for the middle school. We're creating a new CTE pathway in cybersecurity at the high school. The middle school, we believe they're going to create a drama program, which will feed nicely as a bridge program into the drama fine arts at the high school. We are hiring a new behavioral support program, special ed teacher for elementary. We only have 1 BSP teacher right now, and we have a number of increasing disabilities that fall into the emotional behavioral realm. And then we are also hiring a math coach for Lewis and Clark. There are over 900 students, and they don't currently have a math coach. They didn't have the data to demonstrate the need, but of course, with the COVID learning loss and unfinished learning, now is the time to add that position for that building.
Is a math coach
Dr. Calvary,
Yes, sir.
I want to tell you my issue,
Sure.
and I stated at the other meeting. In 2010, there were 4,100 students
Right.
in the Caroline County school system. Right now, you just told me there are 4,036
Right.
students, correct?
Yes.
So basically, our student numbers are level. We'll say level. In 2010, we spent $32 million, and now we're at a budget of $52 million. And I know costs increase, and that's with the 16% increase over time for
That's just the last 6 years.
the last 6 years for employees. We're spending a lot more money for the same kids. I understand that, I've talked to, I've talked to some teachers, some of your staff, and they said that it's more difficult to educate students. And I agree that we need these social emotional pieces. I think that's quite important for our kids. And I mean, that's a piece that's been missing for so long. But that is a lot of money
It is.
for the same number of kids. And a parent says, well, we need to build a new school. Well, how can we build a new school with the same amount of students? But yet, as I said, the population of the county increased by 3,000 people, 1,550 new single house dwellings. And the state gives us a rough number of how many kids when you increase in population, but it's not happening for us. I think that has to be addressed. I agree more money should be put in the classroom, but I don't think more money should be put in administration. The money has to go in where the children are. The money has to go to those bus drivers. The money has to go to that support people, those paraprofessionals who are there changing diapers for special ed students and doing all the grunt work. And our teachers, I agree. But we've got to take care of my feeling, Reggie Underwood belief, is that we take care of the bottom people first. If we could agree to sit down and look at what it takes to give a living wage for those people, and then we do the rest, I'm on board with you. But I told most people I've talked to, county employees who are hourly and trash workers, and we do them a disservice when we say we give a 5% pay raise. We should be calculating that based on what a real wage, living wage is, how we can do better for those folks. And then sometimes some of us may have to forego a pay raise. Because I've done it in corporate world. We always started at the bottom. We had a pot of money. What does it take to take care of my support people? And we paid them accordingly. And sometimes I had to forego a pay raise. I didn't mind because they did the work. And I think we have to start looking at this differently. If we're truly going to be good stewards, it's about what we do for our lower paid employees, the ones who are picking up the trash, cleaning the bathrooms. That's who we should be talking about. Our bus drivers, who we entrust 4,000 kids to get to school every day. That's what we should be talking about. And our teachers who are there. And it is a more difficult time since COVID with social emotional learning. I agree 100% that it's going to take some work and years. But when I look at test scores, we're still dropping test scores. But that's in the state too. So it's relative. That's why I say the money has to be in the classroom.
And I would say as well that the trend associated with the higher budgets would be something that would be synonymous with other divisions in the Commonwealth as well. We too are experiencing an increased cost to educating a single child, just like our neighbors in other divisions are. And I think when you look at 2010 numbers, contextually, you've just come off the Great Recession. And so those numbers are reflective of that post-recession period. And I would imagine that you too had a really hard time recovering from that post-recession period in terms of employees and compensation growth from 2010 to current time. Well, I do. We don't need to dig deeply into that. But I will say that in relation to addressing the end of the compensation scale that is at the lower level, we don't disagree with you, and that is why we did utilize the $13,000 grant money and an unfilled position to pay for the compensation increase retroactive to February for bus drivers. So we do have our bus drivers earning $16 an hour, and that started this past year. And so when we get, I'm going to speak, when we get in a positive term the 10%, that will only boost their ability to be competitive regionally. We did that for car drivers and for aides that are on the bus. We also want to look at paras and custodians and food service.
But relatively, in terms of pay increases, the impact of the economy is much greater on our bus drivers, teachers, our support staff, our trash folks, much greater than our people at the top of the scale. The impact is much greater, but we talk about what we're going to do for these folks, and it never gets done.
Well, we didn't complete our 2018 salary study. That salary study wasn't completed, so we are already behind the 8 ball in trying to address that. We also, when you address the bottom of the scale and you don't collectively adjust the scales, you create compression.
I already,
And that's
I've
a
heard that
problem
word so
as
much, I'm
well.
gonna take it out of the dictionary.
But it's a
Because
fact.
we can do it. We're gonna end this conversation, but I say we can do it we can give people at the top of the scale 5% with a blink in our eye. But we can't give our bus drivers or our trash compact workers, or we can't give them a fair increase because, it compresses the scale. I just don't agree. We're just going to agree to disagree.
Sure.
And we're just going to move on. I appreciate your comments. And
I'd like to say something, because I actually have to say something a while ago. If that's okay.
yeah, you were after me.
One of the things, Dr. Calvert, we can't look at it, and one of the things that annoys me is comparing the schools. You hear all the time comparing schools to the sheriff's office, comparing the schools to what we're doing in the county. I think we need to throw that out. To me, the thing on your side of things is your 14 out of 16 regional.
Correct.
So you compare, teachers are not leaving your school system to go to the sheriff's office in Caroline. That's not what they're leaving. They're leaving Caroline County schools to go to Spotsylvania County schools, or Fredericksburg City schools, or Hanover. And that is something in the 1.1, they're saying it's for the teachers. So we say it's for the little guy. No, I'm trying to justify that they're saying that they're giving a raise to the teachers, and then that's in their budget to do it. That's what they want. They want to give it to the teachers. So we say, hey, we want it for the little guy. Well, they say they want to give it 10% of the teachers. That's the little guy. And I'm just saying at some point, and they were right on the compensation side, we never finished it.
Raises for everybody.
So you propose?
So you're preparing raises for only teachers? Is that what you're proposing?
No. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. They've got raises for
everybody.
They've got raises for everyone. I'm saying is, if we really want to start hitting that 14 out of 16, we're going to have to, at some point, whether it be this year or next year, you're really going to have to sit down and really start pumping some money into salaries for your teachers, because I got to be honest with you, I don't know too many teachers. I know teachers in Spotsylvania that leave in droves to go to Prince William and leave in droves to go to.
That's it's a commute.
But I don't know too many teachers that leave to go to Caroline.
Mr. Black,
I'm just saying.
how many of our teachers live outside the county?
How many teachers live outside? I don't know the percentage.
How many teachers does
idea.
Chesterfield County need right now? How many teachers are we short?
I have no idea.
200.
Okay.
They pay $50,000 starting salary. So you're saying the only issue is money?
I'm not saying the only. I never said the only issue.
That's what you're making it sound like.
No, I never said the only issue is money.
Okay.
I made that comment the other day.
Why don't you make it now?
The only issue is teachers are leaving not just because of the teachers are. A lot of teachers are leaving the profession, period. And that's true. I mean, but teachers that are, if teachers go into a different school system, a lot of times it's for compensation. If they're a teacher in Spotsylvania and they're going to Prince William, if they're upset with the teaching profession, then they leave the profession as a whole.
And I agree with that. There are teacher shortages nationally. You're right about that.
So I mean, at some point, where if we want to move forward with that, then at some point we're gonna have to sit down and we're gonna have to seriously consider, hey, what are we gonna do to help the teachers and support staff?
But you keep saying teachers, but we give money to the very top of the scale year after year after year when we can say, hey, stop. Anybody over this amount, we won't get a pay raise until we pay teachers effectively, and maybe we pay bus drivers effectively, until we pay trash workers effectively. If you're at this level, there is no pay raise until we get these people at a nice living wage. Don't sit here to me and talk about teachers. I know what teachers do. I know what teachers make. They are not paid. Let me finish. I'll let you finish.
We can have a discussion.
I'm going to say what I want to say. Now,
you can say it in a way that's not talking like crap.
I haven't said a nasty word to you yet, but I will. The reality of it is, teachers are not
because you're a
paid.
bully to everyone else here. You're a bully to everyone else that speaks up here, and you don't treat any people with respect when they come up here.
That's right.
So yeah, and that's fine. You're the chairperson. You're the chairperson of the county. You're the chairperson. You do that.
You get a chance to be
so. Yes. You're the actual chairperson of this county, and you bully people when they come up here.
When we pay teachers effectively, we're going to have to sit down and make some tough decisions about what we do with money. When we pay paraprofessionals, we're going to have to make some tough decisions. We continue to say we're going to do this for everybody. Equal and equity are different. We're trying to give teachers and make them equitable. That means we may have to do something more for those teachers, those bus drivers, those paraprofessionals. I talked to a young lady last night working in the county for 40 years of making $30,000. That's not a living wage, making $11 or $12 an hour. We can do better. And I told Mr. Cully, we had this conversation, 3 hours? Am I right, Mr. Cully? 2 hours.
Sir. Couple hours.
And it always comes down to compression. It shouldn't come down to compression. It should come down to what we can do for people. And that's what I'm saying. And that ain't good.
I just have 2 yes or no questions, please. The raises we're proposing, or that you're proposing, are for all employees.
Yes.
Yes.
Are teachers all in the instruction category?
Yes.
All teachers are in the instruction.
I'm going to look to my right, but I believe that's a yes.
Well, administrators, I just said that was my 2. I mean, administrators are all over the place.
For teachers, yes.
Right. Administrators are all over, right? Right. And they can be in instruction too?
Yes, they can.
Yes. Why?
Why? Because there's instructional administrators, principals, assistant principals, director of elementary, director of secondary. Those are instructional positions.
That's the way the state wants
state coding.
That's the way the
state separated by state.
Correct. So there are admin people in all categories.
Yeah, I mean, that's, to me, I would think they were administrators.
They sit in the classroom or just fill in?
I'm sorry?
Do
Principals.
forget it. I'll call you and ask you later.
Okay, all right.
I don't want to sit
Thank
down
you very
with
much for my question.
Mr. Ford, had any comment on the budget?
States
Additional comment?
reclassify people.
Your behavior support specialist that you're proposing, is that for Lotus or is that for the countywide or what is that?
That is for an elementary school. So currently we have a BSP program at Bowling Green. So what has occurred, there has been an identification of students with emotional disabilities or behavioral support needs at Madison and Lewis and Clark, and they're having to travel over to the other side of the county. And that program has reached capacity, and so we need our caseload numbers to be compliant. So we're going to place the second BSP at either Lewis and Clark and Madison so that students, 1, can be closer to their homeschool or in their homeschool, but 2, that we can have compliant caseloads as well.
Is it a special class or is it?
It is a special education classroom. Depending on the severity of the student's IEP needs determines the amount of time that the child spends in the classroom for services. Some of them have collaborative services, which means they return to the regular classroom and a para or a teacher may support them in the classroom. And then at other times they have pull out to support some of their IEP goals and emotional de-escalation for crisis situations.
I wrote down my questions because it was like 20 minutes ago.
We were doing a closed session.
You still got one? Anything else?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had a very good conversation with a teacher at the night middle school. You have social workers in the school?
We have a social worker in every building. Yes, sir. We're proud of that.
And that is in your budget, not in the social services budget.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Is you saw the need and you filled that need. That was a hole. That was previously a hole in our collective services to the citizens of Caroline County that you filled.
And it actually stemmed directly from a change to a state law last year, which required a certain number of support staff to be part of your standards of quality positions. And so when we ran our statistics, and it was licensed support staff. So you needed to hire and meet the quota associated with your student population, your student, is it ADM or the ADM enrollment? Thank you. It was a licensed school psychologist, a licensed social worker, a licensed registered nurse, or a licensed behavioral analyst. They are dinosaurs, or they're unique unicorns, I should say, not dinosaurs. That might be viewed negatively, but they're as unique as dinosaurs in 2022. And social workers we actually eliminated 2 positions which were focusing on attendance. 3 positions actually that were focused on attendance, and we used those funding sources and some funds we got from the state and some local dollars that we had to create those positions, because we only had 2 social workers at the time. And adding those 3 social workers, and what else did we add? 3 social workers and a behavioral support specialist met the quota.
These were the individuals that, if I recall, 2 years ago, the state was saying you have to have. At that point, we were thinking counselors. We're adding all these counselors.
Separate.
That's separate.
Yes, sir.
These
2 different laws.
Special.
Yes.
Okay.
And that quota has been modified because, honestly, I think Governor Northam was extremely supportive of school counseling, but there is an insufficient quantity of graduates. And so I think they were recognizing that the speed that we were being required to hire wouldn't meet the availability of the staff.
Okay. So these aren't the same people. It's a
No,
different,
sir.
different group of people.
No, sir. They're
Great.
separate. Good questions.
Now, the social workers that you employ,
Mhm.
how much interaction do they have with the actual social services department that addresses a lot of the same people
Right.
through a different direction?
They do not work regularly with the Department of Social Services. They are school social workers, which is different from licensed clinical social worker. And that is what I would imagine that we have at DSS, is a licensed clinical social worker. Some of our people do have that clinical title, but that is not how they operate in schools. They spend a lot of their time doing social histories for child study process. They do all of our attendance, and chronic absenteeism is a very large endeavor, especially coming out of COVID. So they spend a lot of time working with teams, and that they get involved in FACT, and they do then cross paths with DSS if a student and their family is not responsive to interventions that the school puts in place, and then we need to travel a more legal path, and we try to be more proactive with DSS first before we have to go into the law enforcement realm.
All right, because coming from social services on the county side,
Right.
we're told, at least I was told, that there are some things that they can assist you with as far as
Yes.
attendance and things like that. So it's
Yeah, we do have a checklist, and if a student in need is at the table that they're discussing and they have a high ACE score, adverse child experience score, where lots of trauma and maybe an incarcerated parent or child abuse background or drug and alcohol abuse, those types of factors, if they're elevated, once that checklist is filled out, we can ask DSS, a representative, to come to the table as an intervention. And that is how we have often brought them into challenging cases that really need wraparound supports beyond schools.
I think that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Black, any questions?
No.
Mr. Sealer?
No.
Ms. Long? Mr. Thomas? We'll move on to the capital projects. Are we talking about capital projects, or we don't need to do that? Any other items that we need to discuss other
That
than
was the current capital project, not the CIP plan for the budget.
that's a separate, yeah.
That's what you said.
That's what-
Yeah, that's what the current. Item number 6 is the 23-27 capital.
It's going to say.
Oh, okay.
So how do you want?
So 4B is a mistake.
What we did already.
No, we did 3 already.
Yeah, you haven't done B capital, that would be FY 23 capital projects.
Which is also 6.
Which is
That's
also six.
6, right? 23-27.
So B is a mistake. Move on.
Well, B is a
No, B
discussion.
is adoption,
Six is adoption.
adoption, if appropriate. B would be discussion of proposed CIP. So were there any questions about both the county CIP and the
We'll get through the agenda and get into a closed session.
The thing that I heard last week, Mr. Forehand wanted to add a aerial truck that we had gotten. I don't remember whether you've given that, but the price of that's about $90,000 in debt service a year.
1.2 million.
20 years? 20 years or 15?
15 normally.
It's not going to last 15. You don't want to find
15. That would be 15. It'll take 2 years, obviously, to hopefully get the truck built. If you ordered it, you ordered it today. But we could. That has not been added into this. That would add to.
We'll have to front end one the next year something.
So that would just basically change the budget by 90,000. You know, debt service. The 1.2 would go in the whole capital, but we borrow that.
Any discussion on that?
So we did, we're gonna start figuring out how, that's what.
When do we have to actually make the first payment if we ordered it in June?
You need to have the money available to place the order. So you have to. We borrow all of the capital needs at one time. Courtney would handle that. We go out for RFP to get the lowest rate we could get. So we would have the money in the bank. We wouldn't have to make a payment on it for a right good while, depending on contract. And that
Yeah,
that to the chief.
You can pay upon delivery, 100%, or you can pay an incremental.
Sometimes you get a little bit better price break if you give them a little bit of money.
We don't have to give them a deposit. No deposit.
Yeah, not required.
And it takes 2 years.
Right now with COVID, they're 2 years.
And Mr. Wilson has 2 very large projects that we approved recently that should start next year, or be up and running next year.
I bet it'd be 2 years for
Yeah.
the shortage of supplies.
18 months for construction.
Right.
For a building that's
18 months.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's in our CIP. We just it wasn't in this year's CIP.
Could we order it on with the understanding that we have it in the general fund, or would we be better off go in and getting the finance money with the interest rates as they are?
I would at least like to look at it that way. It's tough when you start saying, well, we'll pay for this out of the general fund 2 years from now when it comes, not knowing. I mean, right. Hopefully it would be all right, but if you just had to raise taxes to pay for it, or borrow it, you could borrow it later. But I imagine interest rates will be higher next year than they are this year, the way things are going. So I think that would be our recommendation. Unless Courtney had a different recommendation, we would add that into the finance. And a truck we wouldn't be purchasing down the road. I don't remember. It was 25 or something like that. And so it's like 25 CIP that it was scheduled and slated for, because we had other trucks in front of it that are more first run trucks that are wearing out. But we're certainly supportive of it from a staff perspective. We do recognize it's needed.
I think we go ahead and put it in now.
And with the type of buildings and the type of development we have, it's probably not a bad idea to get it under construction.
I'm going to make that motion whenever we get finished with all of this.
Okay. Now, okay, that's the.
Can you go to the top of this, Mr. Collins? That's all school projects, capital fund.
Schools over here.
Okay.
Where'd he go?
He just moved from different tabs.
So where on there is the HVAC?
It was requested, it wasn't funded. I do have a suggestion for that. There may be a way, instead of borrowing that $1 million, that if there were return funds from the schools, they could be earmarked for that coming out of this year's end of year.
The current year that ends in June. June 30.
I mean, I don't know what they're gonna have left over, but it's certainly a way.
It's 20-year unit, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's in next two.
I understand that. They have 1 million lines when we get stadium turf, 1 million, and there it is. That's certainly a needed project.
It's not a frivolous project. That's
Not at all.
Could you please explain to me when you have the COVID money, since you knew that needed to be replaced, why you didn't do it with the COVID funds? Wouldn't that have qualified? Was it air quality one of the qualifications?
Yes, ma'am, and we have $3 million set aside. This is over a $4 million project, and so we've needed the other funds to address mitigation, instructional needs, and a variety of other HVAC projects, which you can highlight. Yeah.
So you've done an audit on the COVID funds, and you get a copy of that?
We did submit to Mr. Kelly all the COVID funds that had been spent about 2 weeks ago upon request.
What about projected?
There are long-term projects and short-term projects in the air quality study. It was about $8 million total in projects. So there are additional $1 million or $1.2 million of HVAC projects around the other facilities that is also being spent out of the COVID money, and then $3 million was set aside for the CMS project, which was the air quality estimate at the time with the hyperinflation, with all the pandemic, with construction and timelines. The project's now quoted at $4.1 million. That's the reason for the additional $1 million.
Okay. So it was price increase.
And you do have that paperwork on this project in your folders if you'd like to learn more about it in detail.
In our
Yes,
folders, did we have projected spending for the COVID money? She just said we sent.
Not in the folder, no, sir, but we did, someone did request that information and we did submit that to Mr. Cully. So if you're looking for greater detail associated with the ESSER CARES funding, Mr. Cully does have that.
Okay.
So how would, if we were going to go with your plan to fund that, how would we include that here?
It would have to come out of the, you have two ways of paying for it. It's either coming out of the fund balance, or you add it to the borrowing with 40, which would be about $90,000 a year debt service. So it,
well, we did have some reversion from last year.
we did $697,000 we put in the fund balance, so you could.
And we'll
it's on the earmark that
we'll have something coming back.
right. So you've already put theoretically not $697,000 of school money that came back to us in current that's in the fund balance. You could set that aside, and then whatever's left that comes from the schools again could get you to the $1 million, and whatever doesn't, you would just have to make up out of the fund balance and not borrow that $1 million.
How do we don't get to discuss how the COVID money is used, because you've already made the decision on how it's going to be used.
Right, we have to update our plan every 6 months, and that is online in relation to the funding. But approximately 40%, the $3 million you set aside for the CMS full replacement and the $1.2 million of other HVAC projects, that there's about 40% of our COVID money that we have used for air quality purposes.
And see, that's a little hard for me to sit here now, because there may be something that you think is really important for that money that I would think is better used over here, but it's your money, so you get to make that decision. You know, it's kind of like, to me, somebody said last week, you know, show us where your priorities are. And my priority is to not build a turf field, but give whatever money there is to teachers. So
I hear what you're saying. I do also think it's important to acknowledge that very similar to the county funds, there are so many parameters on how monies can be spent. So when you're talking about GEARS money and you're talking about ESSER 1, 2, and 3 and ARP, each of those has guidelines, and much of those funds were restricted to learning loss and mitigation, and not all were applicable to HVAC air quality. So when you hear that total number, that's $10 to $11 million, that is a substantial amount, but we are very cautious as to how we use it to ensure we're not moving outside of those parameters.
And then you're not putting employees in that money, are you?
No, yes, sir, we are. The 17 positions that are noted in the brochure that we gave you on the budget are in this as recurring costs for the length of the budget. And then we are collecting data to look at the effectiveness of each position, and we are developing plans on those in which we feel must move beyond 2024 for pay.
Right.
There's no way you're gonna be able to keep them all.
No, ma'am, we will not be able to. You're right. And we recognize that, but we know some may bring more value than others based on data that we're collecting.
I would like to pursue using that reversion money from previous years.
We can certainly match that. You know, what we would do is we put the million over here
For the
and then
truck. Yeah, I'm gonna make, if you're
and then
ready
we'll
for that.
put the 697 you put in the fund balance. We'll put that into this year's, along with then the other would be from the fund balance, and then we would make that up with whatever was returned. That's how I'm not going to do all that today because it's a lot easier to get my desk than it is on this.
I like that plan. It gets it done.
All right, so there is a motion on the floor from Mr. Thomas regarding the fire truck. His motion was that we
go ahead and include the, what did you call it, Chief? The
aerial
truck, for the Common Church Fire Station, of course, which is where he said he's gonna put it.
That's on the
I'll second.
There's a second by Mr. Sealy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll put that in the CIP. Talk about it.
You want to put the there in the school CIP.
Excuse me?
You want to put the million in the school CIP to match their $3 million for the CMS
For the
air
quality.
replacement, right?
Yeah. So do we need a motion for that?
I'll do these things as long as everybody sitting over there is in agreement.
So, yeah.
School CIP for $1 million.
He would prefer a motion. I'll make a motion that we use funds out of the fund balance.
The 697 that we put in, and then the remaining, we'll look at it that way.
Yeah, the 697 that we put in, and any future reversion money be allocated towards the HVAC for CMS HVAC replacement.
Second.
All right, so there's a motion that we take the 697 reversion funds already in the budget and any reversion funds left over from this year to fund the Caroline Middle School HVAC system. $1 million. $1 million. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Question on that particular motion, that we're gonna use our building official as the project manager on that again?
Yes.
Should be turned.
Well, we'll
We'll
oversee it.
We'll oversee it.
It'll be a county
Mr.
project.
White, like we did the other, we'll oversee it. Yes, sir.
That's COVID.
Yeah,
It's 3/4 of the money.
we have 3/4 of the project. We're happy to be at the table and talk hip to hip, but I think it needs to be a joint conversation if that's comfortable with you.
Okay. We've had much better luck with the project managers, so that's the only reason. I understand it's your project, so, we work together, but.
That's okay.
Can we
Agenda item.
adopt the budget tonight? Can we adopt the budget
Yeah,
tonight?
you can't appropriate it because I don't have the appropriation resolution ready because I don't know what you're doing, but we'll bring that back to this May meeting. So you can adopt it, tell us what you want.
That's gonna be easy.
But now, one of the things I wanted to add in the budget, can we start Can we just investigate, I know it's too late now, having our own county attorney?
We did that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I know it's time to do it again.
It
Can
takes
we-
months and months. It's not-
That's what I'm saying, I'd like you to start looking at that now, so we'll be able to look at that in December or whatever.
For next year's budget.
Because if we don't look at it now, we won't have it in time.
That's pretty limited, but okay. It's pretty limited.
Agenda item number 5, so,
But that would give us, that would understand that.
Alright, so you have
Are
one,
we doing honors too?
Yeah.
Besides schools?
yes, we are.
One of the things that, Mr. Chair,
yes,
one of the things I'd like to bring up on capital projects, and it's not in here, and I think we need to investigate it, is, there's a lot of people in the, I think the county as a whole, that would like to see, better facilities for Parks and Rec. And I think that is something that, there's nothing specific yet, but I think we need to work on that as far as getting something in the, you go into like Stafford and they have multiple fields of soccer and field hockey, and they're not run by the schools, they're county run, and it's for leagues and run by Parks and Rec, and people can rent it out. So I think that it's something that we need to consider in the future, because we're growing and there's a lot of younger people coming in, that's stuff that they want to see. They want to see stuff that people can, for recreation.
if we get to agenda item number 6, we can discuss that in the 23-27 capital improvement. Okay,
If we wanted to, well, we could always, it wouldn't be capital. Like if we were gonna do a hire or have paid investigate location and just the logistics behind building it, we would just put that out of the fund balance, right?
You could. Depends on how much it costs, and what you plan to do, but then we gotta set the parameters of what we're looking to do. That's, of course, this has come to a board level, so I don't know exactly what we're looking to build or do, or what it's looking to encompass, but we could put a plan together and sort of price that out.
We already do have a pedestrian and bike path plan that I think is, we need to look, as far as GWRC, I think we approved it already, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I thought we were talking recreation.
Yeah, right. Which would kind of falls under recreation too.
Yeah, just walk hard, that's what I did.
But that's adoption. That's kind of adoption, but that plan's already in place, so you can start talking about it this year.
That's coming forward in a comp plan update.
Okay, all right, thank you.
all right, agenda item, yes, Ms. Long.
I have a WCIP question.
Well, let's wait till we get to agenda item number
Okay.
6, and then we're just putting the cart before the horse. Agenda item number 5 is adoption of the fiscal year 22-23 budget, if appropriate. So are we gonna hold that adoption, or are we gonna wait till our next meeting?
We're gonna operate, we haven't talked about our own side of it yet.
Yeah, that was, I guess, C and the 4C.
Yeah.
And, so if you're ready to talk about that, I would like to add back in the employee that the treasurer requested. That was one of those things that was sort of in and out throughout the preparation of the budget. And so I do support that position due to the workload that transition to Keystone is going to make on that office. I do believe that is a justified position.
So we're getting software to add more work.
Well, it's
That's
just
the wrong way.
the transition of that, and then the transition of the treasurer retiring, I think is going to create the perfect storm in that office. So it's a lot. I think Tamika can speak to that. That this whole process, which I knew wasn't going to be smooth, is certainly not smooth. So I think that's a fair. I haven't added I think the last person was added in there was for proration, if I'm correct. Beth is still here along the way.
Yes.
And so it's not like that. There's been a pickup of employees in that department over the years. So I do recommend including that. That's in my numbers currently, which I had over here somewhere. So that takes a general fund of 59,032, and the other position that I've put in, since it's actually 2. I recommend 2 dispatchers given the workload that's in dispatch. So that's about 7.41% increase in the budget, and we were at 7% so we're still in the same range that we were before. But I would recommend those two additional positions.
That would be additions to your current.
To what I proposed, but it's actually in these numbers that are shown now.
Because the two positions weren't in the one you chose originally that we talked about after.
Those two are not. They were
Now
requested, but
right. So this is your new amended.
Correct. I do recommend both.
Right.
Two dispatchers and one additional person in the treasurer's office.
We just got new software for there too.
Dispatchers, yeah, their problem is call volume is up, and so it's workload. There's a lot of overtime in that department, so we may save some money if they were able to hire quality people. I think I may say I don't want to budget and cut the overtime out yet, but I do believe there's a possibility to save overtime, and Captain Lambert probably could speak to that as well. If we had full time, the overtime could go down.
It's we run 3 10-hour shifts, so we struggle every day with finding somebody to fill basically a 10 a to 8 p.m. shift. At minimum of 4 to 8, so there's a ton of overtime.
How many are on duty at once?
I'm sorry.
How many are available in dispatch at once?
Our optimal minimum standard is 3 on day shift, 3 on evenings, and 2 on midnight. So if we had, with those 2 positions, we would be able to have create a partial shift from 10 a to 8 p. That would allow for the extra coverage during the peak hours when we're getting the higher call volume. And then after 8, or when our evening shift goes home, we can cover with 2 midnight people generally. Obviously every now and then we have something that goes astray, and then we'll have to call somebody in.
But that will give you the additional people that you need to cover what you're doing now with overtime.
It will cut out, eliminate
that will,
most of the overtime.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
So that really pays for itself.
And it's just a burnout.
Yes.
We had the same people, and we're struggling with ICE when we had 3 dispatchers that had to work 36 hours in a row.
You haven't had a dispatcher like this since 2008, I believe, correct?
Correct, I think it's something.
Right, with 18,000 more calls as of today, so
Exactly.
you definitely need that. Okay.
Hey, can you talk about Mr. Sheeple's office and seasonal people we had?
Yeah.
That were doing litter pickups and things, and
Mr. Sheeple.
Yes, sir. We need some more people, but
The question about Mr. Thomas has a question about the seasonal folks we hire. Do trash pickup and some of the other pieces.
So I've got 2 vacant seasonal positions, 10-month seasonal positions that we use to cut grass that we can't fill. We have not had a litter crew since January, and the crew that we had from July until January, we only had 2 of the 3 positions filled. So right now, I actually have a volunteer that started last week from one of our convenience site attendants that are working on their day off Wednesday to help pick up trash at 1 day a week. So I've only got 1 litter technician. He doesn't have a license, so he's working with the convenience site attendant to pick up trash 1 day a week right now.
Just out of curiosity, what's your recommendation if it's
We're coming to the board in May to discuss the seasonal people in general. We have a plan. We have some issues with grass cutting in one of our contractors. Unless you really want to get into that now, Joe, I thought we were going to do that in May.
I'd advise you not to wait till May to cut the grass.
I'm not waiting till May to cut the grass.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We need to at least give them some direction right now.
So we currently got a contract that we had in place to help mow grass. Prior to us giving up the Lathrop Community Center, we used to have a contractor that cut the grass at Lathrop Library, Dawn Library, and Visitor Center. So since we gave up that, we took over 2 libraries in-house. So, and over the last 3 years, we have spent quite a bit of time and money trying to plant grass and fertilize and seed and weed and have beautiful facilities now. So now the problem is that we've got great grass growing everywhere, but don't have the staff to cut everything that needs to be cut. And our contractor is no longer providing service, told us that he won't be able to do that anymore. We contacted a couple of the local vendors. Both of them have turned it down, saying they don't have enough staff, can't hire somebody to do it. So they won't do it. We've got another vendor that just gave us a quote
And it was 4 times higher than what it was to do it last year. And that's just for one facility. It just, and if I can't keep grass cut, I'm gonna have to hire somebody to continue to try to catch up and cut grass. So my guys are working late, they're working in the rain, they're working on weekends to cut grass right now.
It's a money thing. You can hire people at the salaries often, so that's the case.
What is the current salary?
$11 an hour.
We can talk about it.
Yeah, that needs to go up. It's proposed to go up a
What's
dollar.
What's the rate?
$11 an hour. That went up.
That's for seasonal. You're paid for some of them are more than that.
So yeah, the grounds crew people are, but the seasonals.
The seasonal right minimum wage.
Yeah.
But that minimum wage for us go up to 11.
Yeah,
From
they're
11.50
making
to 12.50.
for seasonal. How much came from for seasonal full time? I mean, for full time.
Oh, how much came from manufacturing?
15.
20. The commercial said 20.
I'm paying 18 for an EMS,
That's what King.
firefighter, medic.
My professional truck drivers are making $14.
You can't just take 15 to the seasonal ground crew without looking overall comprehensively at every. I'm not going to say it, but it's what the, I mean, it's real.
So it just speaks to that we need to look at the whole package.
Well, I'm trying. I have the budgets built on. If you're trying to get to $15 an hour from where we are right now, that's $4 off of minimum wage across our whole scale. That is a huge number that's going to make that do. You could go $2, and I've discussed this with a few of you, instead of the $1.50 and get there halfway this year, so it would take that minimum salary to $13, and then you could get to $15 next year with an additional $2 influx against everything.
And I told you I like that much better. Just signals that we're trying to do.
And that, hold on.
If we
do it for a little while. You can't always say I'm restricted by compression. You have to fix it right now and say we're coming to fix you guys at a compression.
I'm glad I'm not the only one saying that.
When somebody's sitting side by side doing the same job.
Charlie, I understand. I was a manager and paid my people under me more. I understand.
No, I'm not talking about I know, but I'm talking about side by side. You can't pay a part-time person more than you're paying the full-time.
I think somebody that's reporting to you is worse than side by side. But we got to fix it now, and then we'll fix the C words later. So I'm saying we need to give them another few dollars in this budget.
Charlie, as I told you on the phone, I just believe that
what Charlie showed me the other day looked good to me. Yeah, really.
I had to, the only way I can change that number.
And they
can you hire part-time people now? Charlie, what would it cost to do your plan that you're expecting to be July 1 right now?
It's gotta go back and change.
If you changed everything that I had proposed and changed it from $1.50 to $2, then you're at 1.325 out of the fund balance, not counting the 90 for the fire truck.
1.325. That's based on the 5 or 6. Based on the 6 you
5%
had already.
Or $2.
No, you had 6. You had 690 coming out of fund balance before.
No, I had it right at 900 and something with the changes that we had made. So we've lost.
So you're only talking another 200.
It's not even money to go up to the 50 cents an hour for that to go to $2.
200,000.
300 and some, or maybe 350. But here's the issue: my original budget that had less out of the fund balance because the state was still bantering around the recordation tax. Right. So they didn't restore it to give us the 500,000 back. So I had to take that revenue out. However, if you were able to adopt the cigarette tax, I think that we will stand to make some significant revenue with that. So it probably won't be this much out of the fund balance if that goes in.
Plus, we really expect personal property tax to be.
No,
Personal property, you've already figured in. That's already figured in the budget.
No, but we lowered it.
Yeah, we lowered it. That's all. The personal property is already figured in.
Do you need a motion?
That's all we got.
Do you need a motion for that?
Yes.
Go ahead, just someone want to do that.
5%.
$5 $2.
No.
Is it 5% or $2? Is it $2 and 5%?
No, it's $2 or 5%. Everybody getting $2, but you're getting 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13%.
For them right now.
And so that the,
We can do it right now for,
You gotta look at the,
you're talking 2 months.
okay.
we can do that, we
2
probably
months,
do that.
1/6 of that,
The question,
300,000.
so the question is, Mr. Cully, the change to $2, can we do that now and continue it through the budget? Do we have enough money to do that?
I would think so. I would look to Mika to do that, you mean for these,
What would it cost?
for these people that you're talking about trying to hire in Joey's department, not for everybody right now, not every department. Yeah, I think just for the seasonal.
You guys got me so confused.
Mr. Cutler,
going back and
let me go
forth.
back.
We're not gonna know.
If we did it for everyone, what would it cost us for the next 2 months?
50,000. If it's 300,000 for a year, 1/6 of 300. 6 goes into 5.
Yeah, I don't wanna guess at that math or what that costs. He's talking about going up
Well,
$2
that's
an
the batting
hour
average,
across
I
the
know.
board right now in this budget. I am not prepared to give you that number right now.
I think, so if your number was 9 something, you changed it.
Yeah, it went up 400,000.
You
Yes.
better clarify that quicker.
I think that's the same.
Yeah, so 400,000 divided.
Right, so,
So
What if we just
you
do
didn't
it for
talk
Joey's
to
people?
the people that we.
No, I'm talking about taking it with everybody. It's the cost of everybody.
Joey people. All right, it doesn't matter to me.
since we can't get folks to do what we need to do, can we look at Mr. Shebel's folks?
We can do his.
Right away.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
All
It's
right,
not that many. I can cover that.
That I can
Okay.
go with.
then the motion would say that we would change the rate for Mr. Shebel's
Seasonal,
immediately, seasonal workers immediately, and that we would change the budget 23 to $2
About 4 or 5%.
that should be the motion. Yes, ma'am.
May I also inquire, so the 150 that Mr. Kelly had in the budget also included a 15% incremental increase based on the annual years of services.
For litter techs
For
and
those
convenience center
people,
workers, right?
are we addressing that as well, or are we doing $2?
Well, just.
That's gonna stay in a,
Just not touch.
I wanted to
Joey
increase
Just,
$2
what if we
more.
just do Joey's and we leave the budget where it is, since there's way more in it than we're all capable of figuring out tonight. And we're gonna be here,
Excuse me.
we're gonna be here another 2 nights doing this.
sounds like it.
Well, the 50 cents is, we know what that number is, about $400,000. That doesn't change. It just means that the convenience center workers, instead of $1.50, are at $2 plus 15 cents per year of service.
We're gonna leave it.
I would say it would be part-time employees, because we technically only have 2 seasonal employees, the motion was for season.
Right.
So I would say part-time employees.
Seasonal and part-time.
So the motion needs to be amended to say seasonal and part-time.
If that's the motion, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. So we'll take the seasonal and part-time
Immediately.
employees from Mr. Shebel's office to $2 additional.
Immediately.
I mean,
If we leave the budget.
It's
So
gonna impact this budget.
Yeah, well, that's
it'll
Yeah.
impact it,
But
but
once you go to
Pennies.
2 on them and
But
do
if-
$1.50 on the other people that aren't in Joey's department hourly, I think you're committing to that personally. Just commit to it for the budget. You see what I'm saying? Now you're just picking out some part-time people that are gonna go up $2 and which are automatically gonna be at the $2 for this.
But I think my personal opinion is that I believe we can make changes to the budget at any point in time, right?
You certainly, up to a point where you have to advertise again if you do too much.
Well, we're not gonna change the tax rate, but we
Not only
can,
that, you can only increase the budget a certain percentage or you got a public hearing.
right, but
50
we're gonna
cents
look
an
at
hour
salary,
would do
yeah,
it.
I
That
mean,
shouldn't do it now.
yeah, we're gonna look at different things that are smaller during the year or during the next meeting
so
or
you
so.
know about this budget.
We can. Because we still have salaries, we still have some other discussion there.
Did we,
You've
no
already
vote on the
approved
motion?
Jeff's position and,
We haven't voted, yeah.
Yeah, no.
have we
All right,
already
so
Let's
done
vote on
Jeff's
this motion.
position and the
Yeah, the current motion is for, just for
911?
Mr.
Joey's.
Shebels,
Mr. Shebel's position, let's just vote
that's for
on
Mr.
this.
Shebels.
And it's only because we got an immediate issue that needs attention right
Right.
away. Are there any other immediate issues that need attention right away that we should know about?
Besides teacher salary? I mean, as far as the, we're
We're voting on Mr. Shebels folks,
just
too.
those.
Just those.
Yes. So.
So there's a motion and a second by Mr. Sealy that we increase the pay for Mr. Shebels seasonal and part-time folks by $2 an hour. Immediately. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, ayes have it, motion carries.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, yes.
I have something that we're still on the, budget, and I've talked to you about it, and it's nothing, this is not an affront to Mr. Wilson. I just feel like in the economic development office, I feel like if there's one office that makes us money, it's the economic development. And, I just feel like we really could use a second person in there to help recruit businesses.
All right, Mr. Black wants a discussion regarding adding a person to the Economic Development Office to assist Mr. Wilson. Yes, Ms. Long.
Mr. Black bears my feeling. I don't think this is the time. We're doing well over there. We're gonna have to bring someone in when the part-time,
That's a tourism person, though.
employee, excuse me, I have the floor, retires in a couple of years, and that would be the time maybe next year or the year after to start working somebody to train and learn all the connections and work under Gary for a couple of years in filling in the tourism and the economic development. But I don't think this year is the time to do it.
Thank you, Mrs. Long. Any other discussion?
Well,
Mr. Thomas?
I would like to know what we get from tourism, because I really haven't seen much from tourism, so.
Exactly, so another person, that's not, and. This is just, it's way less.
But really, we don't get a tourism program, we don't have the things we did 10, 20 years ago, whatever, so I'd like to know what we get from tourism, maybe which, Mr. Wilson can have the tourism director come before us and say what she's done on her own,
Okay.
and then we'll go from there.
Maybe we can add that to the agenda for our next meeting, Mr. Wilson.
Yes, sir. We would very much like to be able to tell you what's going on. I think we're remiss in not sharing with you as aggressively as we should what they're doing. Since you're doing a fine job. In fact, there's a $110,000 grant.
Well, we'll give you the opportunity to do that at the next meeting. You can make a full presentation.
Thank you.
about that. Okay. Mr. Black's back to you. So you don't drop it. You're going to move forward.
Well, I mean, I'd like to at some point us consider it, because I mean, it's the one office that makes us money.
I understand. The only way we could go forward is either a motion or just put it on the agenda for discussion.
Put it on the agenda for discussion.
All right, we'll add it to at our next meeting. Okay. Based on the changes that Mr. Cully and we talked about for the budget, is there any more budget discussion?
One quick question for Mr. Cully,
Yes, sir.
all right, Mr. Cully, you said if we do certain things, while we're discussing teacher raises, if we were to add money for teacher raises, that would not require public hearing, right?
I don't think that would, it's 1% of our general fund budget.
That's the threshold.
If that comes up.
Am I correct on this? I'm pretty sure it's either 1% of the total or 1% of the general fund, but it's 1% is what our.
So if we want to add $350,000 to get it to 8% for Justin, that 1% just for instruction. Right?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, that would not be a problem. The only time we've done it that I can remember is when we added the detention center in, because PRS told us that they had.
So we can't change the budget anytime within the realm. So is there any other discussion regarding the 22-23 budget?
Just clarification, you have the 3 other positions in there, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And we're at $1.50.
We're at $1.50 for everything other than the convenience center workers are at $2, and I assume you would still want the separation of, because, you know, one of those persons been there 29 years and only
Right.
making $1.31
Right.
more than everybody
Yeah,
else. So we give them $2, but they still just staying right at what everybody else coming in the doors making. Not 15 cents juice on it.
All right,
just making sure that's all in there.
I have a question about,
Go ahead.
the 19, 5-hour EMS. Is that our magic number, or can we add some
He
this
wanted
year?
more, I cut that. And that's not fully funded for the year, so that is a training lieutenant that would be brought in at, a couple of months into the budget cycle, and then all the ones that we're applying for a grant as well. So that grant money's revenue that's in this budget as well.
We're counting our chickens.
Well, you know, and so then it's 19 firefighters in at 6 months. So 6 months of insurance, 6 months of salary.
The 19
Or
seemed like a lot
18.
for one at one time.
He can explain, it's 3 backfill and
Yeah, so there's one training officer, so that brings it down to, and again, that's for the academy, and
Now we had a training officer years ago, right?
we have a training captain now. We need somebody that can break away from that and teach all day, firefighter and EMT. So that leaves you 18 left. So 15 of those positions will be active positions on the floor, 3 on the engine, 2 on the ambulance, 24 hours a day. So that gets you to 15. The last 3 are backfill for each shift when someone takes off, so we don't incur the overtime and we can maintain that minimum level of staffing 24 hours.
Does that help us with Carmel Church?
That is Carmel Church.
That is Carmel.
That is the only complement is for Carmel Church. So we need staffing in other stations, but right now, that's a lot to hire at one time, but without it, we don't have a function in Carmel Church.
he had 25 in his
25
total
stations
request.
a year.
And that's why they're staggered out. They wouldn't be ready to be put out online until 2023.
Oh, I see.
So that's why we stagger the hiring.
Just not like we're going out and hire 19 on July 1st.
No, they won't be hired until January. And that gives us time. The issue with the grant also is we want to make sure we're not supplanting any funds. If we accept the grant overall is $3 million. And it's performance period for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the 22-23 budget?
Yeah, it's not a question. I just think, I would like to know, see if there's any, board members. I think that what, Clay had just asked about, Mr. Bryan just asked about the $350,000 to give them us a 1% so they could go to teachers fee at the 8%. I just think that would be a show of goodwill on our part. I mean, I'd like to see a lot more. Obviously, I don't think that's there. But I don't know if there's any board members that would be willing to do that. To go to 1%.
Just an instruction.
Just an instruction for teacher raises. Or staff raises.
Mr. Thomas said it was just penny.
Good point.
Is that a motion or
No, it's
Yeah.
discussion.
Well,
discussion?
Or, I don't know, I can't speak.
Any discussion?
What we talking about, make the 1%, does it show?
yes, it would be yes. It would be the one, so it would go from 7% to 8%. So we would be putting in 1%.
How can you give 8% when our own employees aren't even close to that? I mean, I'm trying to be equitable. They're saying they can do 7, which I applaud the school system can do. I think that's great. But next year's budget, that 7% is going to be compounding what we have to come up with for raises, because we've only missed 1 year in the last 6 that we didn't do a raise. And I'm just trying to be equitable. I mean, our employees were looking at 5. They're looking at 7, and now we're looking at 8. And next year, the cost of that is going to be significantly higher as that percentage has gone up. I think we need to be careful. It's a slippery slope. It's not that I don't want to pay teachers, but 7% is a big raise. And it does increase our cost year over year every time. So every time we do this, the next year is more expensive. And I think we need to look at 7% is a healthy raise. I mean, I don't know many places that I've ever worked that have gotten a 7% raise. ever.
That's cheap. What are the garbage technicians making right now? The landfill technicians?
The litter tax?
No, the
convenience
site work.
They start $11 an hour. Well, now
So
$2 more.
If somebody makes $12 an hour, we give them a $2 raise. What percentage is it?
I can tell you what.
It's 16.7%.
The percentages in that department are huge. 30, 40.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
Well, I'm saying you can't say 10% of $10 and you give me a 20% raise. That's a good thing. Come on, now.
That's how percents work.
Yeah, but that's why I said we can't do that. And that's exactly what I'm saying. Numbers why doing percentages without looking at folks and what they should make is not a good idea. We have to sit down to make sure that what we're doing makes a difference for the employee. If I make $5 an hour and you give me 30% pay raise, I mean, it sounds good, but it won't get me to where I need to be equitable. That's why we have to. I didn't say you were. I'm just saying. So we say percent. We really have to look at it to make sure we're being fair to the employee, because 5% pay raise isn't fair to every employee. You have to look at some on a dollar basis, some on a percentage basis, and we can do this. If we really sit down and work, we can do this. So,
What does that
$1.
What does that mean?
What
If somebody's making $41,000 a year, $42,000 a year, and I give them 1%, that is $400.
We're not giving them a 1%.
We would be given 1%, they would be getting 8% total.
Again, does it matter where the money comes from? We're looking at it overall being equitable to all employees.
Now, I will say, I'm a firm believer, and it was already touched on, that we talk about the extra people coming into the county, and it's not reflecting in our school numbers going up. But nationwide, homeschool numbers have been going through the roof. COVID only exasperated that, because people found other mechanisms outside of public schools. All right, that's just a reality. At the same time, the teacher shortage has started many years ago. Okay, and not all of them are going. If they were all going lateral moves to other school systems, there wouldn't be such a drastic shortage. There would be some, there'd be haves and have-nots, but that's not the case. But, and I've said this publicly many times, if the only issue that people are leaving is not money, it's one of them. I mean, I hear stories from my kids out that the bus got parked on the side of the road, the bus driver got out. I don't know if that was just hyperbole. You know, she was hitting the back of the head with something. And I made the comment in one of the conversations I had last week, that if we had better behavior, if we had better behavior of our students, we would be beating teachers off with a stick that wanted to come here. Okay, because I gave up a lot of money for my mental health. And if it was all about money, I would not be doing what I'm doing right now. I would be driving and doing many different things. So I can appreciate when people leave for mental health purposes or for working conditions. I mean, unfortunately, it's our situation right now. And I'm not an administrator to know where the handcuffs are, or what keeps us from doing certain things. But I think that is the biggest driver that people, while kids are pulled out of school to go be homeschooled, it's a huge driver on why teachers get out of the profession. I mean, I got 2 kids in the middle school, and for the first 6 months, it was, hey, there was 3 fights today. You know, there was this person acted like a fool. This person did this, and it's like, now it seems to have calmed down, fortunately. But again, I don't know. Maybe they just stopped telling me. maybe I glazed over, or checked out one too many times. But again, I don't have a magic wand, and I don't know how to make it better from where I am. But it's like we could do that. I mean, maybe we can, maybe we can't. But what are we doing as a county, as a school system, as a school board, as a board of supervisors to address the elephant in the room?
Mr. Forehand, let me say, and I said a work session earlier this year, the responsibility of this board is to give the money to the school. And they determine how they spend it, how they use it. The operation of the schools sits here with the superintendent, the chief operating officer, and the school board. Those issues that we talk about tonight are discussions with, as far as I'm concerned. But if you believe we're appropriately funding schools, then you could say we need to give more money to help schools do social emotional learning to ensure that kids are, and so it comes back to the money issue. What are the needs to overcome these issues?
Needs or
tactics, but that's not for us to say.
I agree.
And
you're speaking to the camera, not me, right?
Okay, I'm just saying, but that was your conversation about what I think around schools. For me, I'm trying to stay away from that conversation because I'm just the party that appropriates money to schools. So the operation does not fall within our purview. So as much as I would like to see things probably done maybe a different way, I don't say because it's not in my purview. Mine is say we can ask schools to get more money to put social emotional learning coordinators in schools or programs. But I hear what you're saying. I hear the same stories, but I don't know how to address it.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add one last point of
yes, sir, Mr. Thomas.
We go. Two of the best school systems in the country, Fairfax County, Virginia, and Montgomery County, Maryland, are both reporting teacher shortages.
Everybody is.
And they pay a lot of money for teachers.
Everybody is.
So the point is we're short all over, and we've got to do something jointly to help attract teachers, keep teachers, and move forward. So,
and I'll add on to that comment that two of the most heavily funded per pupil.
Yes.
Are DC and Baltimore City, and they have two of the worst school systems in the country.
Well, DC suffered. I went to college in DC, so I personally.
But
a lot of their issues were
it just reinforces the point that it's not all about how much money you can spend, because it's. I guess what I'm trying to say is
you got to do better.
We
all have to do better.
But if they were an initiative, and I'll say this to schools, if they were like an initiative, and I love the Lotus Cat, and I think it's we could expand it. And I said 6 years ago, the ones that remember, if you have that classroom with 25 kids, and one acts like a fool, all learning stops until you can address that. And if you don't have a plan to address that, which I think we're getting better at, then that we're sacrificing the education for the other 24. Okay, and that is when you think about it in the context, yes, that one needs services that they're not getting. But so many times we overlook the 24 that remain in that class. What's that? Who are not getting everything they need because of the one. Okay, and this is not a have or have not situation. It's like one is not getting what he needs, but neither are the 24 when we have that situation. And all the focus is on the one, and all the 24 get the shaft. More times than not, at least publicly, what people are talking about. Maybe in reality, where the rubber meets the road, it's different. But all the reading I've done, we're focusing on the one, and we're the 24 aren't complaining a whole lot, so we're not really saying anything about it. So, anyway, that's.
So, I guess what I'll do, and then just to make it out there, I'll make the motion that we add $350,000 to help a 1% raise for the teachers on our end. In the instruction category, yes.
Why don't we let, why don't we, before you get a second, why don't we let them come back with their budget first, based on the number we're gonna give them?
We got a motion, I got it.
There's no second.
You don't have to, I'm just saying, the school's gonna have categories once we give you your budget number, right?
Correct. Yes, we will
So then we can look
produce
at the categories
categories.
and say, here's money for that category.
We could
Because
just
no
put it-
second, the motion dies.
we could just put it in the category of instruction now, and then they would be guaranteed. They've got to get contracts out to,
We don't have a category to put it in now, that's my point, that's all I'm saying. Because they don't have categories to give us.
Right, see, the categories that are in are the categories they gave us with the raise already in instruction. And what I do is take this balancing line that's up here and take $1,177,000 out of their request to get down to the number that works. So they've got $37,644,612 in their category, which that should be enough for a 10% raise. So you can't add $350,000 to that category number. They've got to adjust these category numbers to meet this. Then you need to put $350,000 more in the $52 million that is their operating fund, which is what Mr. Thomas is saying. I'm just sort of backing you up, showing you.
And that's a good point there, because in that Q and Y column, the actual expenditure for 21 was 32.8 million.
In 34.
And the budget was 34.5.
That's the adopted budget for 22. So we don't know what they've spent yet out of 22.
And the
We're in it.
37 is the new number.
Correct.
So there's 3 million in there, more than 3.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So that's.
So, Mr. Tully, if the board, just so that curious, the board decides tonight, and I know they're not going to, but they say, oh, we're going to give 500,000 more to schools. Well, how would you do it?
Oh, I would adjust this number right here and lower that adjusted
So
number.
it can be done. It could be done tonight.
But it's not.
No, he's got a
By
local
category.
number.
What you want to do is put in the category. You got to wait for them to take what we give them and come back with all the categories and then plus that number into that one category.
You just
He started talking before the
Right.
second time, so I don't interrupt what you're
Well,
saying right now.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Clay. Be quiet. I'm slow. But no, what you do typically is change the local contribution number, right?
Yeah, that'll go up.
So you would change the local contribution number, give that number to the school board, and the school board decides where to put their category.
That's what we would always do.
Oh,
That's what I'm saying. So if I say now, here's X number of dollars.
There's no guarantee it's going in instruction.
Right. Okay.
That's when I lower this
That's
number,
what I
this
said
1.1 million,
Let
that
them do
would
their
change the
categories and then
transfer.
come back and you can make that change.
That's the only, and I understand what you're saying. The only issue is from the school side. If you're going to get your contracts out to the teachers, you just redo so if the board says in a month, 2 months, hey, we're going to give you another 350,000, is that going to be easy for you to change the contracts?
They can't do contracts now anyway. There's no budget.
Yeah, the state hasn't done
The state
it.
hasn't done a budget. There's no there's no.
We still have to issue contracts, and
Yes,
there's a
in May.
caveat in the actual contract that states it's dependent upon funding sources and funding streams. So that would still roll forward, and then we would modify accordingly after with a second round of contracts if needed. I do want to say that, if the amount of money that was proposed is appropriated for FY23 to instruction, that would not impact our operations side of the house as well. So just want to make that aware. It would solely be the instructional staff. And then secondly, just as a reminder, the data point of being 14th out of 16, at 7%, we remain 14 out of 16 if our regional peers give 5%, which some are giving 5 and some are giving more. And only when we get to 10% do we move that needle to 12 if everyone gives 5%. So just want to make sure that contextually is back out there.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Black. that we appropriate additional $350,000 to schools for instruction. Is there a second? Is there a second? Hearing none, the motion is denied. We'll move on. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we can address that same issue
Later on. Yeah.
when the schools come back with actual categories.
I understand. So now is there no more discussion on the budget? I will take a motion to approve adopt the 22-23 budget as amended by Mr. Coleman.
I'll make a motion, we adopt the amended budget.
There's a motion that we amend the adopted budget, second by Mrs. Long. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay, we have division in the House. Mr. Tom, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Ms. Long, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Steele, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Ford, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Mr. Black, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-1. The budget is adopted as amended.
And Mr. Chairman, as a comment on that motion, as we discussed, we always have the opportunity to come back and modify the budget within limits.
Yes.
And if I could make a comment on that as well, the only reason why I voted no is Mr. Cully, nothing against you. I just don't feel like in a time where there's economic growth going on. Excuse me, I have the floor. So I don't feel like flat funding a school system when we're doing very well is a good way of doing business. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. We've already discussed the 23-27 capital improvement budget. Need a motion to go into closed session.
You want to approve it?
Oh, you do?
No, the capital, the CIP. You didn't
Oh,
make a motion to
I'm
approve the
sorry.
CIP with the amendments that we made.
We looked at the 23-27 capital improvement budget, but we didn't adopt it. Capital improvement plan, but we didn't adopt it. Is there anything other than addition to the fire truck that's there, right?
The fire truck and Woodley in for the school.
Right.
We voted on that separately though, right?
Right, so you just need to,
So it needs to be in there again as,
Formally
just as
adopted.
amended, adopted as
Yeah,
amended.
just as amended.
So can I get a motion to approve the 23-27 capital improvement program as amended?
so moved.
Second.
There's a motion approved to adopt the budget, the capital improvement program for 23-27. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to recess. Mr. Black, if you would, make the motion.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, I move that this board convene in closed meeting pursuant to, 1, the personnel exemption of section 22.23711A1 of the Code of Virginia to discuss personnel matters relating to the duties, promotion, and compensation of an employee in the county's planning department, and 2, section 2.23711A3 of the Code of Virginia, acquisition of real property for the public purpose where discussion in open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body.
Is there a second? Motion that we go into closed session and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. We are now in closed session.
I have 3.
Motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
Mr. I'm certified.
Came out of, we need to come out of closed session.
A motion to come out of closed session, I think.
I said so moved.
A second? Is there a second? So the motion, come out of closed session, and the second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're now out of closed session.
Certification.
Certification, yeah.
Mr. Black.
I move that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors certify that each of the best of each board member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirement by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting to which the certification applies, and 2, only such public business matters were identified in the motion convening the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered by the board.
Mr. Thomas, you so certified?
So certified.
Ms. Long, you so certified?
So certified.
Mrs. Seeley, you so
I
certified?
so certified.
Mr. Forehand, you so certified?
I so certify.
Mr. Black, do you so
I
certify?
so certify.
And I so certify.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the reclassification of the building official to a new position of Deputy Director of Planning and Community Development for Code Enforcement / building official at grade 28 on the Caroline County pay plan effective immediately, and approve the proposed job description for the new.
Motion, a proper second.
Oh, he's got more boards?
Do I do all 3?
All 3 together?
Yes, you need to.
Okay, and approve a supplemental appropriation of $3,350.18 to the FY 21-22 inspection budget needed for the remainder of the current fiscal year to accommodate a pay increase for the building official as a result of the reclassification.
That's it? Is that all?
That's it.
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion, a proper second, that we reclassify the building official and additional to the additional funds in the motion. I need the exact number in the motion.
I gave it exactly.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn, because we don't have a meeting.
Second.
We don't have a meeting next week?
No.
All right. Second. I think there's a motion by the Seeley to adjourn in the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.